And of course, we are continuing to watch the latest developments as the ballot counting continues south of the border. But more broadly, particularly in politics, whether it's American or Canadian, how much do we stereotype people who have opposing viewpoints, be them political or otherwise? There's a story coming out of the Washington Post that found they did a very interesting survey, and the survey found that 3% of Republicans say they would justify violence if they believe that this election was stolen. That's on the Republican side. But when you asked Democrats in this survey their numbers, they believe that almost half of Republicans would perhaps resort to some kind of violence to contest election results as well. So if we're, here we are talking about, the politics and the divisiveness that's happening south of the borders, Capri, is there this stereotyping truly happening to this extent?
I do really think so, unfortunately. And here's why. I mean, let's just think a minute about what we see on the nightly news or on cable news. We're not necessarily seeing some robust, nuanced policy conversation or feel-good stories about bipartisan cooperation. What are we seeing? We're seeing, footage of Trump supporters trying to run a Biden campaign bus off the road. We're on the flip side, we're seeing, far left-wing activists out in Seattle torching cop cars. So people are seeing these images and they are, internalizing them, whether it is, implicit or explicit. People do develop those stereotypes, and then popular culture, I think, takes it one step further. So, we've noticed recently, Sacha Baron Cohen came out with Borat 2, but a couple years ago he came out with a show, at least down here stateside, called Who is America? And he played on these stereotypes where they had the right-wing conspiracy theorist broadcasting, from his basement, and then the kind of Bernie Sanders type, Larry David guy that rides his bike everywhere, super progressive. And you know what? The thing is that we're not yet. Who is America? We do have some extremes. We're neither of those things. We need to spend more time getting to know one another and understanding that there are reasons why people have very passionate views. Unless we take the time and do the work to really have those dialogues, we're not going to get past this divisiveness and overcome those stereotypes, at least in my humble opinion.
Yeah, well, there's a great quote, and I don't know who to attribute it to. It's not mine, but it is: distance creates fear, closeness creates care. And in an increasingly polarized political world, what you're seeing is the farther that the left and the right get from one another, you see the increased stereotyping, the increased vilification even of the other side. The problem that I have with this, I loved that, as an American, Capri, you're saying we got to sit down, we got to talk. But it's very hard to sit down and want to talk to somebody who might have such opposing views when they may be supporting a president who has been openly racist, openly misogynist, takes kids away from their parents at the border, who has lied, potential extensive criminal activity. And here's the rub. In this election, you would think that over the last 4 years of chaos, as some people might describe what's happened in American politics, the numbers are actually bearing out that more people voted for Trump in this election than they did in 2016. And so it's very hard to want to reach out to that caricature, if you believe it's a caricature, when you feel like if that person is standing behind a president who has done all of that, I don't want to talk to them. And maybe the stereotype might be somewhat true.
That's fair.
I'd have to. Yeah, you know what? I'd have to agree, Mel. But this is what we call unconscious bias. And when we think about our unconscious biases and how we apply them, not just in our political world, but in how we deal with our neighbors, how we deal with our business partners, how we deal with our coworkers, people at school, this has been brewing for a very long time. And I think that we don't have an option right now but to do what you said earlier, to connect, to tell our stories. And I think 2020 has offered us an opportunity with COVID and with these awkward conversations about race to increase our empathy about how we connect with each other, to share our stories, to understand that we are more than just a red or a blue, or in Canada, an orange and a green, or a block. It is really about how we tell our stories and really connect on that empathy level and that humanity level.
I don't know. I'm at the point where I'm done telling my story. Either you with it or you are not. The stakes are just far too high. And for me, I don't know if it's bias. I think we are now seeing a political landscape where a lot of us are just heading in eyes wide open. We will take exactly who you show us we are, especially when it comes to the far right wing. Listen, we understand, of course, that there is that medium, there is that room, there is that space for debate. I think we should give ourselves a little bit more credit. We have been able to have the capacity to have debate. What we won't debate on, though, is racism, homophobia, bigotry. And that's just that. And it is hard when you look at the political landscape in the United States of America, with Trump in particular, is that, okay, we could have and hold the conversation about right wing and see their views. But basically, he stood up on stage after stage after stage, winking his eye to the far extremist right groups, rallying the extreme right groups. And so what that is doing is it's pushing the left even further left. And it's the same with, you look at Joe Biden, who's also running for president. I wouldn't say that he's a liberal with a capital L, but the Republicans are so willing to vote against everything that he stands for because they believe that he is far left. And so they're willing to tolerate the Donald Trump tantrums. And they can come out and be like, oh, we're embarrassed. Yeah, but you'll still vote for him anyway. So I don't think there is a middle anymore.